What's up, everybody? It is Dankamyouknow, and I am back with another video. And what we're going to be doing today is unboxing, installing, and doing a complete overview for the EK Basic 240mm AIO. And this version does not have RGB, as you can see by the water block here. And this came in at around $90 USD at the time of this recording, which seems absolutely crazy for a 240mm AIO, especially from EK, because they're the absolute kings of custom water cooling. So that brings up the question, is this the best value 240mm AIO you can buy under $100? Let's go ahead and jump into the video and find out. So before we get into it, if by the end of this review you're planning on buying this AIO, I'm gonna go ahead and have my Amazon affiliation link for it down in the description, and it doesn't cost you anything extra, but if you purchase it through the link, it goes to help to support the channel. But without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into the unboxing. So let's get this thing unboxed. Let's flip this bad boy over. Cut it open. Let's take off all this wrapping. Get this out of the way. It looks like it's got a seal down here. Oh, I cut it when I got the wrapping. Let's flip it over, open her up. Probably be easiest to see like that. So we've got our manual, our instruction manual, and this thing is a hefty boy. These are some fantastic looking instructions, and it's an all color. So this, I'm gonna be going through this, making sure I've got it set up correctly for my AMD CPU, AM4 mounting. Get this out of the way. Got a little protector, and there we go. So you can see the AIO, it's not as packaged as nicely as I thought it was gonna be. But let's go ahead and let's get the fans out. The pump seems to be kind of at a little bit of an angle. I'm not sure if that's hard to see, but let's pull the fans out. So what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna try and test it with these fans first, with the supplied EK fans, and then I'm gonna use the fans that I originally planned to use, which are Noctua fans. But let's put these to the side, because I am gonna test it with those. And then in this packaging right here, we've got all of our accessories needed to mount it to the motherboard, and this looks like the Intel bracket, but it's also got all the AMD stuff. But I'm gonna go through the manual, and I think I watched a video of someone installing it, and I think I'm gonna be using these little standoff screws, but we'll go through that in a second. So this is all of our mounting that we'll need, and other than that, we've got our connections are over here. And we've got our pump 4-pin. Oop, let me make sure I got that situated. And yeah, the pump's kind of in here at a weird angle. Maybe that's just the best they can do. But there's the pump. It says it's original packaging. Let's go ahead and get this. This is maybe a little bit difficult, and it's sticking to my hands, of course. The pump has a significant weight. This feels extremely well built just by feeling it. I watched a couple other reviews of it, and yeah, and it does have pre-applied thermal paste. I'm not sure if I'll use my own paste or test it with this first, but the pump is very substantial as far as weight. So let's go ahead and get these cut very carefully. I might have to pause the video so I can get these cut. Wow, there we go. Okay, so I got past the initial tape. It's still a little bound up here. And I don't want to mangle this too much. Yeah, this is a very nice looking pump, and it should match my build very, very well. And these tubes, I don't want to move them too much, but they should have some play. There we go. So I can arrange how it works best as far as like tube placement at the top, because I plan to mount it at the top. So let's go ahead and leave that in here nice and safe. And then let's go ahead and pull out this radiator. And the radiator is actually fairly lightweight. Feels good and looks good though. can see the light coming through all the fins. Feels very solid. Looks good. I think this is gonna look fantastic in my, so let's see if we can get this all pictured. There's where my fans are gonna mount to. It's gonna mount to the case on this side. And there's a good look at the pump. And let's see if I can, let's put this down for a sec. As carefully as I can. Let's remove this sticker over the EK logo. This is much more difficult than I thought it was gonna be. EK, why you do this? Why make this sticker? And I have no fingernails, so this makes it even more difficult. Wow. There we go. All right, so there it is. There's the pump. Boom, nice and shiny. And then there's the rad. And that's actually everything that comes in the box. So let's go ahead and turn off my PC and start getting this thing installed. All right, so if you don't want to see the installation process, I did leave timestamps down in the little progress bar. So if you don't want to watch this or you don't need help installing it, you can go ahead and skip forward. But first I'm going to start off with removing all of the panels. And I ended up removing the front ones because I thought I was going to end up replacing the 240 millimeters in front, but I actually left them as is. But I just made it easy on myself and I removed all of the panels. So now I'm starting with the two top 120 millimeter fans, and I disconnect my Y-split cable, and then I've got my light bar that goes down there. And then next I am removing the fans for my Noctua U12S, which is a 120 millimeter air cooler. And I actually never had any issues with this guy. Temps were always fantastic, but I just felt it was time to try out an AIO, and the EK, it looked really good, so I decided to get away from the air cooler route, which, if you know me, is big, because I've always stuck with air coolers. It's so simple. There it is, and you can see the dust outline on the cooler itself. It had been a while since I had cleaned this, and just in case you're running out of clean a CPU, isopropyl alcohol and some lint-free paper towels works really well, and you just spray some of the alcohol on the wipe and then get everything off. And then I use a Q-tip to get any that might have gone over the sides. So here I am just cleaning everything up, making sure the CPU is nice and clean. And usually you can tell when the Ryzen logo and everything on it is super clear and can't really see any specks of thermal paste on there, and you want to make sure you get it all off. So now I'm going to remove the brackets for the AM4 mounting that was needed for the Noctua U12S, but it's going to be completely different with the EK. So I go ahead and remove these 4 Phillips head screws that hold the brackets in, and the little gray spacers. These screws were much longer than I thought. There we go. And I kind of had to lift the case up and push the backing plate back in because it actually fell out. Because if you don't know, they're actually just loose in there. So I had to hold it up while I got some of these threaded in. So I get the 4 standoffs installed, ready for the new cooler. So that's all ready. So now I move on to the top bracket, and I'm so glad this is removable. It made mounting the radiator and fans so much easier. So if your case has this, I would highly recommend doing it and not attempting it in the case, which would probably be pretty difficult anyways. So now I'm going to go ahead and get the bracket mounted to the rad. And on mine, I had to mount the rad the furthest forward on the bracket I could. And I'm not sure if I show it later, but my CPU power cable, the 8-pin, it almost gets in the way of the rad. So I had to push the rad all the way forward in order for my my power supply cable, the CPU power, in order for that to have room to plug in. So I just get all 8 of these screws in, and I actually don't fully tighten them. I leave a little wiggle room so I can kind of move the rad back and forth. And I didn't show it on this, but I'm actually installing the Noctua fans. Later on in the video, I do have results from the EK fans. But I've got these Noctua ones, so I ended up just replacing, using these fans. Because these ones are fantastic for static pressure, and they're much quieter than the EK fans provided. But once we get into the results, you'll see that the EK fans actually did pretty well. They're just very noisy. So here we are getting the top in and making sure everything lines up. And yeah, unfortunately I didn't show up, but the CPU cable just barely sneaks by the rad right there. And here I'm just plugging in the water block 4-pin PWM fan. And then I get the top bracket screwed in with the tube Phillips head, and here I am attaching the brackets that you need to attach. And you can see they only go one way. Originally I wanted the tubes to be on the bottom, but unfortunately because of the AM4 mounting, I had to mount them like this, and then the tubes had to be on the right side. And it ended up looking okay, but the tubes are a little long, and you can see how I kind of had to not squish them, but adjust them into place. It ended up looking really good. I just wanted the tubes to be on bottom at first, but it didn't quite work out. So then I used the 4 springs on the standoffs, and then I used the 4 large screws while holding down the cooler with the pre-applied thermal paste. I just go ahead and get all those tightened and make sure they're all snug, and then I just hide the water block fan under there. Alright guys, so the AIO is in and it looks fantastic. It matches my build absolutely perfect, and the slight little gunmetal finish it's got on it looks fantastic. And the tubes came out looking okay. I wish they were a little bit shorter, but you do get some play right here, so I can rotate these this way. You just got to be careful when you do it. I don't want it to separate from the block itself, but I was able to bend these down a little bit, and the curvature of the tubes looks good. And yeah, it's all set to go. And just in case anyone's wondering, my rear fan is plugged into my system fan header down there, and then my 2 radiator fans are Y-split into another system header I have that is back there, and then my CPU water block is pumped into the CPU fan header, which is right behind here. You actually can't see it because the rad fans are in the way. And then my 2 front fans are Y-split into the CPU opt fan header, which is up there too, right next to the fan header. But yeah, the fans are all spinning good. I got the fan curve set up pretty darn good, and I'll go ahead and throw up a screenshot of how that fan curve is, just in case anyone's curious and wants a baseline. This is a 5600X, so it works super well. But yeah, I'm really happy with how the pump looks with my build, how it looks compared to the air cooler. I think it looks fantastic. And yeah, let's go ahead and let's throw some beauty shots up of before and after, and get into some benchmarks and temps with this AIO. All right, so let's get into some temperatures for the EK AIO Basic 240 millimeter. And keep in mind, all these tests were performed with an AMD 5600X processor, and I have it overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz at 1.2 volts. And this is in a Fractal Meshify Compact 2 case with two 140 millimeter front fans set as intake and a rear 120 millimeter fan set as exhaust, and the two radiator 120 millimeters set as exhaust. And all these tests were performed at 22 Celsius, 72 Fahrenheit ambient temperature. And my idle temperatures ranged at around 30 to 38 C, and my prime 95 benchmark averaged around 65 to 72 to 73, and it really depended on what my fan curve was at. The one I showed earlier is where I got around 69 degrees, 70 degrees, so the CPU stayed super cool the entire time. And I've also rendered videos with this cooler, and the max I saw was about 70 degrees Celsius, so it kept it nice and cool, and that's not even with a super aggressive fan curve. When I had these pumped up to 100, as far as the pump and rad fans go, I was sitting at around 65, so super cool. And then just to test a few games, I tested Horizon Zero Dawn, and it stayed at around 55 to 60, and that was once again dependent upon the fan curve. And then Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for some reason this must be more CPU taxing than Horizon Zero Dawn, but it was around 60 to 65, and I think I have the FPS capped at like 75 at 1440p, so a little bit warmer, but still totally cool. And just to let you know, all those tests were done with the Noctua fans, and then down below I put that with the EK fans on, the temps were about 1 to 3 Celsius degrees higher than the Noctua NF F12 fans. And the EK fans I noticed were actually really noisy once the RPM got pretty high. They did function really well, but I had to go with the Noctua fans in the end. But the results were actually pretty close, so I'm super happy with how the temp results came out. And as you can see, it kept an overclock 5600X extremely cool, so I am super happy with the temperature results. So as you guys can see, the temps with the EK 240mm Basic AIO are absolutely fantastic, and I'm super pleased with the results, and the install was super easy. I do wish I was able to mount the tubes on the bottom. I think it would have looked a lot cleaner going up to the radiator, but the way AM4 mounting is, I can only mount the brackets on one side of it. So this side had the brackets and this side had the brackets, but I wasn't able to put them like this. And because AM4 is rectangular, I was only able to mount the tubes on the right side or the left side. And it came out looking super good, but because of the tube length and how small my case is, it did make the tube bends a little awkward, but it's super functional, and it actually looks pretty good once I got the tube positioning down. So I am happy with that. And yeah, it looks fantastic, and for $90, I think that's probably, it's gotta be the best value for a 240mm AIO there is out there, because there's a lot of 120mm AIOs that are around the $60, $70, $80 range. So for $90 for a 240mm rad and fans, and even though the EK fans were a little loud, they performed super well. They pushed a ton of air, but once you got above like 70% on your fan curve, they did get a little bit noisy. But with the Noctua fans, it's super silent. And with that fan curve I showed earlier, I could barely hear them. Even during the Prime 95 test, the fan noise was not even that bad. So I'm super happy with how it came out. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of the install, and do you prefer AIOs to air coolers? I did include a before and after picture of the Noctua U12S I was using before. So comment down below which one you prefer. As of right now, I'm really digging how the AIO looks. it's just a different look. I've always gone with air coolers, and now I may be an AIO guy from now on, so who knows. But that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said earlier, the link for this AIO, if you wanna buy it, is gonna be down in the description, and it is my Amazon affiliation link. And if you purchase through that link, then I do get a small commission at no cost to you. Well, once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you guys have a great day.